Ideas, imagination, inspiration, MacroWorld. Here's your host, Ray Scott.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of MacroWorld. Today's tutorial is really about summertime, as we take a look at how to photograph a garden, macro style. So you may have a garden in your backyard, a flower garden we're talking about, or perhaps there's one at your local park. Well, it's one thing to approach a garden and you have all these beautiful flowers, and the thing you want to do is take a picture of all that beauty. So that's fine. But today we're going to drill down a little bit closer. We're going to do it macro style, and that presents some challenges, because if you have various kinds of flowers in your garden or the one at your park, then what exactly are you going to focus on? Literally, what flower or flowers are you going to come in close on? And exactly what are you going to shoot and how are you going to do it? So a kind of a walk around is required, as in all photography really, but you walk around your garden. So let's take a look at what I have in my garden. Your garden obviously is going to be completely different, and so it's going to require kind of a different mindset perhaps, but generally we have to walk around and take a look at what we have and then see how we're going to approach it. So let's get started on that.
So this is the somewhat wild backyard garden that I'm working with. And we're going to be working with the lavender and with that yellowish kind of daisy plant. And also, as we go to the back of this, we're going to take a look at those orange daylilies. Those are the three flower types that we're going to be working on today from a macro photography style on the backyard garden. All right, so you can see the lavender at the bottom there and the yellowish daisy-like plant. Let's take a look at the lavender first. Okay, so, this is not a macro shot, obviously. This is what we're dealing with in terms of lavender. So what can we do as we're walking around the garden, as we're thinking, how do we want to try to present this flower in a macro style that suits it and that makes it look special? Well, for me, I think shooting from the top like this is not going to do it if I move in close. So I go down lower and I get something that's a little bit more, in my opinion, moody. Now, it's really important to note that the aperture that I'm using here for this is f2.8, which is the widest open that my macro lens can go. And what it's doing is, I focused on those two flowers in the front, and then everything else kind of has a glow and a warmth to it in the background and is kind of out of focus. That works for me, all right? This is same shot, exactly the same at f8. And to me, it's too busy. It's like it's just got too much going on for me. I prefer to have the front highlighted a little bit. I've also put a bit of a vignette around the sides on this one to darken the side, and again to draw attention to those two flowers up front, plus the shallow depth of field. I think it works better. But that was my approach to shooting lavender, getting down lower using a shallow depth of field. All right. The yellowish daisy type plant. What I did here was I basically brought the flower out of the dark. Now, the interesting thing for me here is, and by the way, this is shot at f11. The interesting thing here is that you see that flower at the bottom coming in from the bottom right-hand side? I could have gotten rid of that easily enough, just moved it out of the way with my hand. By the way, I was shooting everything here with a tripod. Just letting you know, you don't have to. I was shooting handheld to start with, and I just didn't feel comfortable. I wanted to be able to use the tripod, use an ISO of around 100 or 200, and my shutter speeds were maybe a little bit longer than I wanted for handheld, so I used a tripod. It slowed me down, and I got what I wanted. But anyway, getting back to that flower coming out of the bottom right-hand corner, I ended up liking it. I definitely liked it more than just having the flower with the black background. For me, for my eye and my imagination, the way it works, it adds something to it. for you might be something completely different. Another treatment, shooting the back of the flower, coming in from the back of that flower. And of course, one of the key elements of this is that insect on the petal. Now, there's a whole lot of other stuff going on, and you see the beautiful petals and the lines and the color and all that kind of thing. But it's there, and I thought, you know something, I'm going to use it. And that shot at f11 as well. All right, now, on to the daylilies that were in the back of the garden. Now, these present a different kind of a problem because they are hard to capture depth of field-wise, because there's a lot of depth to them and you're up very close. Now, this was shot at f11. Okay, so what happens is when I shoot daylilies, for me, I prefer to have, where you're seeing the arrow there, I prefer to have those in focus, or some parts of them in focus, and then letting everything else go out of focus. But you may want to focus on a different part of this kind of plant. That's f11. This is f16, where you have a little more detail. Okay, still elements that are out of focus. And this is f2.8, so shallow depth of field. And the only thing in focus, right there. All right, just depends on how you roll and how you want it. Again, f11, f16, f2.8. All right. Here, f11, I'm sorry, f8, so that the pistils and stamens are a little bit out of focus, but clearly the insect is in focus. I mean, you can see the little hairs on the insect. Now, I could have used f16, I suppose, but this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that your eye saw the whole flower in a relatively clear way, but I wanted that little guy to be the star of it. So I chose to use f8. You maybe would want to go with something else. Again, f8, but this time I drilled down even closer. Okay, it was like really in there for the insect, and also you can see the dynamic, swoop of what's going on with the flower. And finally, as we're looking at macro-style garden photography, f2.8. Now, the important thing here for me is the background of all things. It's got flowers going on in the back. The echinacea that's the echinacea, the purplish stuff you see going on there, and the yellow daisy-like flowers there making up the background. And because it's f2.8, everything is a wash. It's just color moving in together and all over the place. But that's what made it for me. Of course, I focused again where the arrow's showing, f2.8. Moving in closer, and f11.
Summer gardens macro style. Challenging? You bet. Rewarding? Absolutely. So it's up to you to see what you can do around your garden with your macro setup. And good luck to you. Be interested to know how you make out. Until next time, I'm Ray Scott, reminding you to shoot small, but think big.